Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, if the Phillies could only add one more thing to their team right now, what would it be? What's their biggest priority? Plus, we'll dive into the Carlos Correa news and a little bit more on the Craig Kimbrel conversation. It's time for Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I am your host, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phillies baseball for years over on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your very first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I know we're in our off-season programming now, so it's more like every other day, but I appreciate you still checking in. Thank you to everyone who's rated, reviewed, subscribed on the YouTube. Appreciate all those subscriptions. They're flying in. We're selling like hotcakes right now. Is that still an expression people use? I don't think so, but you know what I mean. I appreciate everyone who's jumping on board the Locked On Phillies. Get in now, because as we draw closer to the season, it's going to be a very exciting year for the Philadelphia Phillies. You're not going to want to miss a bit of coverage. I will be credentialed again. I will have inside locker room access. I will have access to the players, the staff, the manager, all of that stuff. Dave Dombrowski at points. So go ahead and make sure you stay locked in so I can get you the best information possible for daily coverage on your Philadelphia Phillies. Now today, it is December 28th, 2022, which means we are in the midst of the offseason. The Phillies haven't made a signing since they signed Craig Kimbrel last week. We're kind of in that dead zone of news for the Major League Baseball circuit. So what that means is we get to play a lot of hypotheticals, and we get to go through a lot of fun conversations about what if this and what if that. My one today, I talked about this morning on the John Kincaid Show on 97.5 The Fanatic on the radio. Go ahead and check that out if you're in Philly. If not, we got an app, 97.5 The Fanatic's app. You can look that up and you can listen to it there. But of course, I want to have the conversation here with you on Locked On Phillies. And my question this morning was, okay, let's put yourself in a world where the Philadelphia Phillies can only add one more player. They can only add one more piece to the 2023 team. The rest of the roster is just filled out with no-name guys, whatever, spring training invites, minor league call-ups, this, that, and the other thing. But from outside the organization, you can only add one more player at one more position. What do you do? And there's a couple options. Maybe another bullpen piece. Maybe you're looking at a guy who could DH, a bat to come off the bench, because you don't trust Derek Hall. Maybe you're looking at an infield depth piece, even though you do already have Edmundo Sosa and Nick Maton. Maybe you're looking at the outfield. And that's where I go. If I could only add one more piece to this Philadelphia Phillies team, I'm adding to the outfield. I think the bullpen is shored up already. I think the infield has enough depth with Maton and especially Edmundo Sosa, who could probably start a couple places in Major League Baseball, especially after what he did down the stretch for the Philadelphia Phillies. I mean, the dude almost hit a huge World Series home run in Houston in that final game. Unfortunately, he hit it to the part of the stadium that just juts out just to the right of the Crawford boxes. So unfortunately, does not get out there, but that's all right. But anyway, Edmundo Sosa is a good option, and starting pitching is already settled for me. You have 4 of your 5 in the rotation. In the 5th spot, you have options. It could be Bailey Falter. It could be Christopher Sanchez. It could be a call-up for Griff McGarry or Andrew Painter. So, yeah, when I look at everything, here's why I look at outfield. Here's your current outfield situation. Your outfielders on the roster right now are Matt Vierling, Brandon Marsh, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. Bryce Harper is not somebody I consider currently because he's not going to be able to play the outfield for a while. Even when he comes back after recovering from Tommy John surgery, he's going to have to DH for probably about another month before he's going to be ready to throw at all, much less get back out there in the field. He's incredibly valuable as DH, but this season he doesn't factor into the outfield conversation all that much. So you basically have 4 outfielders. Last year, the way the Philadelphia Phillies used Matt Vierling, down the stretch at least, was they used him in a platoon setup with Brandon Marsh in center field. So it'd be Brandon Marsh in center field, the young lefty, would hit against right-handed pitchers and play the field. And when there was a lefty on the mound for the opposing team, you would see Matt Vierling in there, being that he's a right-handed bat. You'd swap those guys back and forth. I would be surprised to see them do that largely again in 2023, simply because I think Brandon Marsh made big strides in the short time he was here in season with Kevin Long, hitting coach Kevin Long, who got an extension this offseason. I think over the course of the offseason and with a full spring training and a full season, the Phillies and Kevin Long firmly believe that they can get Brandon Marsh ready to hit left-handed pitchers to the point where he could be your everyday center fielder. Matt Vierling will still get some starts to break up everything, give him a rest, but you're going to see a lot less of Matt Vierling in center field this year, I'd imagine. That's my guess. That's what I'm projecting based on what I saw from Brandon Marsh in his time here in 2022. So that leaves 2 corner spots. Kyle Schwarber is going to start in left field. Nick Castellanos is going to start in right field, right? Simple enough, just like 2022. Well, not so simple. Your DH that was in the DH spot for most of 2022 and Bryce Harper, not available for the first couple months of the season. The guy that seems to fit best in that DH spot is going to be Kyle Schwarber. So let's say Kyle Schwarber's your opening day DH. That means you have your center fielder, Brandon Marsh, your right fielder, Nick Castellanos. Kyle Schwarber is DHing. Who plays left? It's kind of got to be Matt Vierling, right? You're not going to start Nick Maton, even though he is a utility guy that played in the outfield a couple times this past season. He's not a guy that's a true outfielder. He's not a guy that I want playing significant time in the outfield for a World Series contender. So, yeah, you're pretty thin there. Let's say one of those guys get injured, you're out of outfielders. You'd have to pull Kyle Schwarber out of that DH spot. And you have other options there. You can figure it out. But my point is the point of probably least depth on this team, including starting pitching this year, because now you're in the zone where Griff McGarry and Andrew Painter count as depth pieces. You really have 7 guys that you could start on this team as far as starters are concerned in Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, Bailey Falter, Christopher Sanchez. I mean, more than that. Griff McGarry, Andrew Painter, that's up to 8 guys already, and 2 of those guys are projecting out call-ups, but still, that lends to say that the least depth at a position or position group this year is with the outfield. I'll even throw a couple names out there for you for guys that I would like the Philadelphia Phillies to potentially add. There were 2 that stood out to me when I look at available players who wouldn't be too expensive, who have a bit of a pedigree, who might have had a downswing, but could still bring you something depth pieces. The 2 are Tyler Naquin and my favorite, Jackie Bradley Jr. Naquin, you'll remember his big moment as a major leaguer came in Cleveland when he hit that walk-off inside the park home run and had that crazy head-first slide into home. Yeah, that was awesome. That was an awesome moment. But Naquin's a guy who could play solid defense. He can swing it a little bit. He's just a quality caliber outfielder that can range a good amount, has pretty darn good speed, and you're not going to hit a ton, but he's a guy that could put in a solid veteran at bat every once in a while. He's a guy that's played in a couple big moments in Cleveland, but not as many as Jackie Bradley Jr. did during his time in Boston. And that's why Jackie Bradley Jr. I think would fit great. You know how everyone, when Andrew McCutchen came in, there was a group of Phillies fans or a group of analysts or whatever you want to say, a group of people that would say, oh, well, Andrew McCutchen, yeah, he was an MVP back in the day for the Pittsburgh Pirates years ago, but he's washed. He's on the back 9. He didn't do much for the New York Yankees. He's kind of like an okay piece. And then he comes here and we're like, oh, man, he's still got some big moments in him. And then he goes to Milwaukee after he gets done here, and they were probably like, yeah, we're getting more out of Andrew McCutchen than we thought we were getting at that point in his career. That seems to happen often in baseball when you bring in guys who have been in big moments before. Look at Jackie Bradley Jr.'s resume. He's a Gold Glove winner in the past. He is an ALCS MVP winner in the past when the Boston Red Sox went on that run in 2018 to their World Series championship. He has won a World Series. He has been an All-Star before. He doesn't have an MVP to his name like Andrew McCutchen. He was never that guy, but he's a guy that has had big moments in big spots. That gives you the confidence to continue to make plays even when you start to get to the back part of your career. So that's why Jackie Bradley Jr. seems to be like a good option for me. I know I can trust him. I know I can put him out there, and there won't be a point this year where I'm like, well, Jackie Bradley Jr., absolutely terrible, doesn't have it anymore, can't add anything to this team. He's not what he was in 2018 for the Red Sox when he was starting for that team, but he can still be a nice veteran presence in the locker room and a good depth piece. And he's a lefty. Be nice to have a left-handed bat coming off the bench. I know the Phillies do have a lot of lefties, but you can never have too many left-handed bats available. I think he fits really, really well with this team, and he won't be all that expensive because, frankly, he hasn't played all that well the past couple seasons of his Major League Baseball career. So I would like that Now, a lot of people started calling in or commenting or tweeting at us at the station talking about call-ups. And yeah, call-ups are fine too to fill that outfield depth spot rather than paying. But man, if you're going to pay for somebody, if you're going to add somebody from the outside, I'd love to see a depth piece in the outfield be that move for the Philadelphia Phillies. That's just my 2 cents, but let me know in the comments. Tweet at me, jump into YouTube. I know that we've been getting a lot of YouTube comments lately. I appreciate all those. I see all those. I don't get a chance to respond to nearly as many as I'd like, but let me know in the YouTube comments what you think about Jackie Bradley Jr. or Tyler Naquin as a potential option to add to the Phillies, and what you feel about my pick is outfield as the one other place this Phillies roster could be added. Of course, they can add to multiple. There's no rule against that. But for this exercise, I'm forcing you to pick just one, and that is my pick. Coming up next, we're going to jump into the weird saga of Carlos Correa, because to this moment, we still don't know what's going on with Carlos Correa and the New York Mets and his multiple physicals and this, that, and the other thing. It's going to seem like another edition of Locked On Mets. And I'm not doing this just because I focus on the Mets because they're in division. It's because this largely affects how difficult the Phillies' road is this year. And if the Mets don't sign Carlos Correa, well, man, that path gets easier for the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll discuss coming up next as we continue Locked On Phillies. Let me tell you about my friends over at BetOnline first, though, because betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season. Oh, big stuff coming up. You've got the college football playoff coming up on New Year's Eve. That's going to be awesome. All of that, everything out there. Basketball's going on. The Sixers were just on an 8-game win streak. Just had that snap, but they're playing well. You got everything at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is indeed where the game starts. Okay, let's talk Carlos Correa, because this is partially an NL East check-in, partially a Mets-Phillies comparison, partially just a baseball interest piece, because this is one of the weirder free agent sagas that has ever happened. Let's start by recapping exactly what got us to this point. So Trey Turner was signed by the Philadelphia Phillies. Xander Bogaerts goes to the San Diego Padres. And after the initial reports about Carlos Correa to the Giants, Dansby Swanson goes to the north side of Chicago, to the Chicago Cubs. You're going to play up there. A little bit of a weather change for Mr. Swanson going from Atlanta to Chicago, but hey, he got paid to do so. So at that point, you're assuming, okay, well, Carlos Correa going to the Giants, right? We heard the reports. They went through a couple days later. You go through the physical, but I mean, they tweeted everything out. The account said so, right? Once the main account gets it, this wasn't like an Arson Judge tweet from John Heyman. No, this was like everyone said, Carlos Correa to the Giants, Carlos Correa to the Giants. And you know what I did? Yeah, I breathed a big sigh of relief, because I said, okay, the Giants aren't that scary even with Correa. They're in a tough division they probably won't make it out of in the NL West, with the Dodgers and Padres still loading up. Fine. Go let them toil away in the middle of the NL West. Never have to really worry about him. Never have to worry about that team. Fine with me. Not that Carlos Correa is the end-all, be-all of what you should be afraid of in baseball, but he's a good player. World Series winner in the past, a competent shortstop. I mean, that's underselling it gigantically. A great shortstop. So, good. He's over there on the West Coast. Don't worry about him. And then they do the physical. And after the physical, well, reports come out, hey, there's major issues with the physical. The Giants don't feel comfortable, and they're not going to sign the deal. They're pulling the contract. Contract is no longer on the table for Carlos Correa. And that happens, and not even like 12 hours later. That broke in like the middle of the day or like middle of the afternoon. And then I wake up the next morning. I wake up at 4 a.m. So it's very rare that I wake up to news. Like, I never wake up to news. I'm always waking up, and then the news will break after I'm already up, or it will have broken before I went to bed. I'm only really in bed from like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night to 3:30 in the morning. So a small window to hit, but the Mets hit it. They made waves in baseball when Steve Cohen swooped in right after the physical fell through with the San Francisco Giants and said, hey, screw it. We're giving you, 13 years, $315 million to come over here, be a member of the New York Mets. And just like that, you've got Carlos Correa as a member of the Mets. I mean, there was conversations before he signed or attempted to sign with San Francisco that said, well, Francisco Lindor is talking to Steve Cohen, saying, hey, go get Carlos Correa to play third base. I want him to be next to me. I want to create the most dangerous infield in the National League. And trust me, it would be. Lindor, Correa, Alonso. Are you kidding me? I don't even care who's playing second base. Those guys are nasty. And of course, they've got just a good all-around team up there in New York. And I didn't want that to happen. That's why I was so excited that he went to the Giants. Great news. And now the Mets swoop in. Oh, great. Here we go. The Phillies' road just got tougher. The Mets signing Correa, that makes them such a more dangerous lineup. I don't even care if it's half of Carlos Correa. I don't know what they saw in the physical in San Francisco, but it can't be that bad because the Mets just straight up swooped in and got him. It almost felt like, and there was some speculation out there, that it was a little shady, little not physical related, that they used the physical as kind of a way to cover up Carlos Correa just going back on his deal, saying, never mind, forget about it. I want to go to the Mets. I changed my mind. It was all kind of weird, but you wake up that morning, the day after the physical was failed by Carlos Correa with the San Francisco Giants, and all of a sudden, he's a member of the Mets. Like, what the heck just happened? How did they get this done? They did it like 3 a.m. This is weird. And then a couple days later, you know the physical's coming for the New York Mets. And wouldn't you know it, but Carlos Correa, there are issues with the physical with the Mets as well. What is going on with this guy? It's lower body. It's like leg, ankle. But there's no true report on what exactly is wrong with him. We don't know what the physicals say. It better say something awful. Like, not that I'm wishing this on Carlos Correa, but for the amount of stink being put up, this has got to be some major degenerative lower body issue that's going to cause this guy to be unable to play baseball in like 2 to 3 years. Because anything more than that, just sign the guy, whatever. Like Steve Cohen has the money. They would. But then we got into a situation where, because of the physical in New York, the Mets deal is now off the table. Not entirely, but they're reworking it. And Carlos Correa doesn't really want to rework it, apparently, and the Mets do. And the latest reports I've seen is it's 55-45 in favor of the deal still getting done in some capacity. That doesn't exactly sound encouraging to me. That's a coin flip. Heads he's here, tails he's not, if you're a New York Mets fan. And for the Phillies, well, we're sitting here with bated breath saying, please give me tails, give me tails, give me tails. Get him out of here. Send him back to Minnesota. Send him to the American League. Send him to the West Coast. Put him on the Mariners. I don't know. Get him anywhere that's not in the NL East, because I don't think whatever's showing up on the physical. I mean, this guy played last season. It's not like he's been sitting out for 3 years and all of a sudden he says I'm healthy and it turns out he's not actually healthy again. No, like, he played. I don't understand what could possibly be going on with the physical. But as it stands right now, there's still no deal between the New York Mets and Steve Cohen and the Carlos Correa camp, his agent, himself. I don't know what's going on at all. It's one of the weirder situations in free agency I've seen in baseball. And there have been issues with physicals in the past where guys have ended up being fine, or they got contracts, or amendments were put into deals that say this type of injury, well, you forfeit this much of the salary guaranteed to you and all this stuff, because MLB guaranteed contracts, of course. So you got to put that type of language in there. I don't know where it stands right now. And it doesn't seem like anybody does, besides Steve Cohen and Carlos Correa and the representation of both sides. And I don't even know if they know where it stands right now. But here's what I do know. This deal is very much precariously perched. And at any second, it could be gone. Carlos Correa no longer potentially a member of the New York Mets, back on the market. Some team might throw money at him. There's a great meme floating around. It's a Moneyball screen cap of Jonah Hill talking to Brad Pitt as Billy Beane and saying, listen, Carlos Correa's deficiencies is he's got like a wooden ankle. I think if we wait long enough, the A's can sign him for $200,000. That's funny. It's a joke and everything. But, man, how much longer till we're in that territory? Because how many teams are going to go after him if the Mets pass on him and the Giants pass on him? What are we looking at here? We could be in a situation like maybe Michael Conforto of last year, where he had that injury that restricted teams from signing him. He didn't get the interest he wanted, and then that injury became an issue, and then he ended up sitting out the entire year. And still to this point, I don't believe anyone has signed Michael Conforto. So who knows what Carlos Correa's future holds? You just got to hope, if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan, it's not in the division of the NL East. But we'll keep you updated as that comes down because a very interesting baseball story going on. The story of the offseason so far. Who knew it would be Carlos Correa and not Aaron Judge? But weird things happen in baseball. That's why you follow sports, because you never know what's going to happen. That's a little update on the Carlos Correa situation. And again, we'll keep you updated on how that affects the Phillies and what's going on with our pals. I use that term very lightly up in New York and how they're handling that contract situation. Coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies, I want to get into a little bit more of the Craig Kimbrel talk because there's an interesting tidbit that I didn't get into when we originally discussed it. And it was a conversation that the bullpen conversation I was talking about earlier, like what piece you could add. Well, I got into it a little bit with some people over at the station this morning over on 97.5 The Fanatic. I want to explain my reasoning again here. We'll discuss coming up next as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. All right, so here's the Craig Kimbrel conversation basically in its base form. When I look at Craig Kimbrel, here's the upside. Yes, and I'll actually start with the downside. A velocity drop of a couple miles an hour on his fastball. Yes, that happens. Guy's age. He's got a lot of innings on his belt under his belt as a reliever. Happens. Rough year last year. Yes. Good in 2021, but a rough couple of years before that. 2020 you can throw out. It was a short year. It was COVID. I don't hold any stock in that. A lot of weird stuff happened. Whatever. But the years before that, 2019, not that great. 2018, Like he's a guy that has had one really, really good year in the past 3 or 4. He's had a couple okay outings. But when I look at Craig Kimbrel, the positives are he's a guy who's been there before. He's a veteran. He's a guy, he's still got his brain, is how I phrased it this morning on the radio, in that he's got a brain that has pitched in big moments and playoff moments. Who's got better stuff right now? Bailey Falter or Noah Syndergaard? Because I would say, coming off of the Tommy John surgery that Noah Syndergaard went through a little over a year ago now, Bailey Falter has better stuff than Noah Syndergaard at the given time. Who pitched better in big moments in the postseason? Noah Syndergaard. You know why? Because he's been there before. He knows what that feels like. His brain knows how to react to that. He knows what his body reacts like in high-pressure situations, like the World Series, like a championship series, like a playoff game at all. Bailey Falter didn't look like the same pitcher because he's young. He hadn't been there before. It's different. Craig Kimbrel is a guy who has been there before. So regardless of the recent track record, I know he's a guy that in big moments will not shy away from the moment. There's no question about his ability to perform in those moments. He's done it before. You've seen it. Can he still? Is a better question than will he ever be able to? That's why I like Craig Kimbrel. On top of that, last year's numbers are a little bit skewed. There's an interesting anomaly going on with Craig Kimbrel's numbers. You're going to have to go ahead and check this out. Believe me, it's wild. But Craig Kimbrel was actually really, really good last year. Outside of one team he faced, the Arizona Diamondbacks totally owned Craig Kimbrel last year. You take the Diamondbacks away, and he had relatively similar numbers to what he had in 2021 when he was an all-star and when he was traded from the Cubs to the Chicago White Sox at the trade deadline as one of the big bullpen moves at the deadline. Last year, for some reason, the Diamondbacks just had his number, and they really inflated his ERA and his numbers because they're in division for the Dodgers where he was last year, and you saw him a bunch. It's weird. Why would he have trouble with the Diamondbacks? I don't know. And maybe leaning on that too much is covering up for an actual regression for Craig Kimbrel. But there's some weird numbers going on with last year that kind of point to him being better even than his total numbers look. So all of that factors into why I'm really confident that Craig Kimbrel is going to be a big piece for this team. I think right now he slots in as a good seventh inning guy. I think Sir Anthony Dominguez is going to be your closer. I think Alvarado is your setup. And I think Craig Kimbrel is going to be your big innings guy in the 6th and 7th. But, hey, that's subject to change. Maybe he gets opportunities to close and shows he still has it. Maybe he gets opportunities as a setup guy and shows that he can excel in that role, unlike what he did last year in Los Angeles. That's stuff to see once we get to May and April and June. But for the time, April, May, and June, I should say. I got my months out of order there. But for the time being, I do really like the signing still. Just an interesting tidbit of the conversation that we had this morning on Craig Kimbrel that I wanted to get into. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today is awesome. The breaking news from around sports. You saw our year in review from them that I posted in place of our Monday episode. So they do great work over there. They're available on YouTube, Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts, just like we are here on Locked On Phillies. So go ahead and check them out. Again, that's all for today's episode. And we've only got one more episode before the new year. Yes, 3 times a week. So this is Wednesday's episode. I'm going to talk to you Friday. It'll be our last one before the new year, but got to fit that last one in. And we'll have a lot of interesting stuff as we look forward still to the 2023 season. That's all. I feel like I've said that 5 times in the last minute, but that is indeed it for this episode. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.